Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1055A, and today's date is August 22nd, 2016, and the title of the episode is The Central Bank Admits They Will Need Another $4 trillion in QE when the economy collapses. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now today we see the market is a little down. Gold has dropped a little bit. Great time to purchase more gold. Every time you see gold drop, it is on sale. It means you can pick up more with your paper money. And this is exactly what everyone should be doing at this point. If you can't get gold, get silver. If you can't get silver, get junk silver. If you can't get junk silver, get copper. But have something in hand. If we go out to Greece, we know that the Greek government, it is calling for a full disclosure of all household wealth. And the Greek, they have to disclose everything. They have to disclose their cash, jewelry, real estate, paintings, gold, silver, anything that they have. Because the government is taking the people's wealth and they're trying to pay off or reduce the debt owed to Brussels and the IMF and Germany. And we can see right now that this is going to send the Greek economy into a fourth world order. And it's going to destroy the country. And we'll see how far the people will take this. Because eventually what will happen is that the Greek population, their backs will be pushed against the wall. They will not be able to take much more of this. And we might see a Greek revolution happen in Greece. And this is something that we need to watch in that area. Now, we talk about real estate, not just here in the United States, but in the rest of the world. And we talked about Vancouver, how housing prices are coming down. The MLS, we see sales are dropping, traffic drying up. In the United States, we're seeing the same thing. Out in the UK, the biggest estate agent says that economic weakness will hit the property market. They're saying that the housing prices, they will fall next year as the economy weakens. Now, of course, they're blaming this on the Brexit, but this has nothing to do with the Brexit. This was going to happen no matter what. This was already in the works where housing prices are dropping. This is why we see it dropping in the United States, out in Canada, in the UK, throughout Europe, and it's going to spread. So they're saying that the prices are going to fall by 1% in 2017. The second half of 2016, we'll start to see prices come down, and I'm saying that this is going to be much, much worse. It's almost like the IMF and the Fed making their predictions of how countries are going to grow. Well, they're going to grow by 3.5% GDP, and they always bring them down to 1.5%. And when they tell you that housing prices are going to come down, they always start with the lowest percentage. It's the opposite. It's only going to come down by 0.5%, 1%, which means that it's going to drop by 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, even more percentage points. And they're just out there giving a warning. Because what they're saying is the economy is weakening, the consumer confidence is declining, household spending is declining, and there's rising unemployment, which we've been covering and following. We have to remember, they like to blame everything that's happening right now on the Brexit. But remember, they haven't left the EU yet. Nothing's really changed, except they had a referendum, which was an advisory referendum, but they actually didn't leave. But remember back when the central banks and the UK, the government was fear-mongering? They were predicting an economic meltdown if Britain would leave. As soon as that came in and they vote to leave, the whole thing would just collapse. We would see job losses, the markets crashing. What happened to all that fear-mongering? Well, again, it was the opposite. Remember, whenever the U.S. government, whenever any government or central bank tells you what's going to happen, it's always the opposite. Actually, it's the best thing that they leave the EU. Actually, the economy will most likely improve. But the problem is the entire private Western Central Bank system is collapsing, and it will bring that down with it. So everything they told us about did not come true. It was a lie once again. And remember, they said to avoid all this doom and gloom, everyone would have to vote to stay in the EU. Well, the people didn't listen, and they decided, you know what, we don't want to be part of the EU. And nothing happened once again. So who does the fear-mongering? The central bank, the governments. The whole thing backfired. Now Sweden is out there warning the UK against aggressive tax cuts amid the Brexit talks. They're worried that the UK will do something smart, like lower corporate taxes again. So this is the actual opposite. If the UK cuts taxes, most likely more business will come into that area. And they know this. So we can see right now that the banks, the governments, the central banks, whatever they say, it's always the opposite. They like to lie to the people quite a bit. The Baltic Dry Index, it is around 687 points. And when we look at the Baltic Dry Index, when we go back a couple of years, we can see the Baltic Dry Index, it's in a downward trend. If we go back just to last year, we saw the Baltic Dry Index was around 940 so points around this time frame. And then it dropped off significantly. The same thing is going to happen once again. And the Baltic Dry Index is going to continually drop as we move throughout this year. And most likely we're going to hit lower lows. Now, when we look at corporate defaults, and just a month ago, we looked at the corporate defaults, and we noticed that the total number of global defaults hit around 100 according to S&P calculations. And that rose about 50% from the number of bankruptcy at this time last year, and the highest level since the financial crisis. And what we're seeing right now, 1 month later, we have learned that another 13 companies have filed for bankruptcy protection, bringing the grand total to 113, matching the number of companies which defaulted globally in all of 2015. The last time the global tally was higher at this point in the year was in 2009, when it reached 208 during the financial crisis. So we're midway through 2016, we were at 113. Again, where is this recovery? It's not out there. And S&P, they're estimating that the U.S. corporate default rate is expected to jump 30% and hit 5.6% by June of 2017. We're looking at 99 U.S. companies with the lowest credit ratings are expected to default in the 12-month period ending June 2017. And this is going to be a complete disaster. And every time we've seen this, guess what happens? We're in a recession/depression. We saw it back in 1991. We saw it back in 2001. We saw it back in 2008. And here we are once again. We're on the same track. We see Merkel, Hollande, Renzi, they're all meeting together to relaunch the European Union. They are now going into Africa. They're going to give them incentives to join the EU, because for their system to work, they need more countries in their system so they can spread the debt out further. Without this, the system comes to a screeching halt. And we can see that the EU wants to bring in more and more countries to spread the debt, just like the United States. They need to continually spread the debt. They need to capture countries, place the dollar on their natural resources, like oil, to keep the petrodollar propped up. And we've been talking about the petrodollar, how out in the Middle East things are getting worse as time goes on. It looks like the petrodollar most likely is doomed. And the Fed is already out there warning everyone that something is about to happen. Because when the Fed comes out and they talk about QE, they talk about an economic shock, we know something is about to happen. Especially when the Fed comes out and tells us that they're now forecasting a recession. But they don't come right out and tell you that, hey, we're going to be heading right towards another financial crisis. What they're talking about is what they would do if there was an economic shock, which means they have plans for when this collapse comes. They released a paper over the weekend entitled Gauging the Ability of the FOMC to Respond to Future Recessions. Now, it's going to be much worse than a recession, but let's go with recession. They're already factoring in a scenario in which a shock to the economy leads to additional QE of around $4 trillion. This would double the current size of the Fed's balance sheet. This right here tells us that the Fed already knows what is coming. They have already planned for the next round of quantitative easing. They already know they're going to have to print like crazy. Now, of course, is this going to work? Most likely not. And we're going to see people start to realize that, okay, what just happened here? They're going to create another $4 trillion to save this economy because we just had another shock to the system. They said the system was recovered, that everything was fine. But we can see right now that is not the case. So everything that we've been looking at, everything that we've been researching, all the indicators that we've been following, it's showing us that this economy is in big trouble. There's no reason for the Fed to look at this and analyze and come up with a plan for another economic shock. Because aren't they in control of the economy? Don't they know how the economy is doing? Of course they do. And they know that this economy will be collapsing. They know they're going to have to create more money. They know they will have to do this just to keep the economy operating. Is it going to make it recover? No. Just to make it hold on long enough to start the next event. This is all they're going to do. Then they'll point their fingers. Because when the system comes crumbling down, you can expect certain events to occur. Most likely a cyber attack on the financial system. Because it makes perfect sense. Another country or group brought down the financial system. The Fed comes out and says, listen, look what just happened here. We were in a recovery. Now we need to start QE up once again. And first we'll start off by maybe creating $1 trillion. That's all we'll do. Before you know it, there'll be $2 trillion. Before you know it, there'll be up to $4 trillion. So this number $4 trillion most likely will be about $16 trillion by the time this is all done. Because this next shock is not going to be recession. It's not going to be a depression. It's going to be collapse of the system. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.